music as a whole.
Well, there you go.
Hello everyone, welcome for this edition of Live from the Studio. I'm with a couple of friends and a past guest on the show. Let me launch the intro. Hello everyone. I'm with Alphaster. Hi Alphaster.
Hello.
Malaki.
Hello.
Doug Liner.
Hello.
And Cult of One, sorry. hello. And we have on the show, I've got, who's here? I've got Joshua. Hi Joshua. I've got Mariana Novakovic, also known as the peronosphora. I've got Forestine. Bill Wachowski. Bill, you can join us if you want, and I'll put the link for everybody.
Come on in, Dirty Bill, dirty it up in here.
Yes. Some people may not remember where's the link. Where did I can't even find my own link. Where did I put it? Here we go. All right. And it's okay also for you watcher if you want to join it. It's perfect. Oh, you didn't shave? That's fine. Malaki has got I don't know, a light from the sky coming upon us.
The sun is right behind me and glaring in the laptop camera.
That's not really malarkey, it's an apparition.
Yes.
It's a
Alright.
deep fake. Malarkey's a deep fake.
Deep fake apparition.
Yes. All right, I'm gonna go over the news, and if you want to say something during the news, please feel free. And also on the Jitsi, you've got raise your hand icon. So in case somebody's speaking and you would like to have the then you can raise your hand and I'll notice it and I'll come to you. Sometimes it helps to organize things. All right. Bill, join us. Click on the link and join us. That will be fun. All right, what are the news today? My site, pitchymango.org. Thanks to my supporters for making it possible. Please join the Bandcamp supporters. The community is $20 a year, or just go on Bandcamp and follow me. That would be awesome. Talking about Bandcamp. We've got Bandcamp Day, which is on the 2nd of October, so every month on the first Friday of the month, Bandcamp is waiving their fees and pass all the money to the artist. So I think it's next Friday. Yes.
I
So
think it was the second.
yeah, 2nd of October, next Friday. So you can go on Bandcamp, put everything in your wish list, and then on Friday purchase it. As you're on Bandcamp, I was looking about what's new, and I've noticed Carlstone has just released a new album called Stolen Car. So please have a check. I should put some links here. All right, so if you don't know, Carlstone is a local and is kind of making, I don't know, I will characterize it. A mix of music. He likes to take a piece of music and cut it in many pieces and put it all back together into different arrangement. What else? We've got Hugo Paris, who have got a Threaded Habitats remix, which is on Beacon Song, and I think Hugo is coming to join us in a moment. David, Wabi Sabi, you've got the link earlier, or MidGC if you want to join us, that would be awesome. Alright, so on Beacon Sound, Hugo Paris, 3D Habitat Remix, he released an album on vinyl a couple of months ago, and now you've got a remix by a couple of his friends. And there's a Nathan Modi remix also, that's one of our locals that was on the show earlier. We've got Knuckle Fest 2020. Alphaster is part of it. And he gave me a promo video, so let me launch that and we see each other just after. Alright, welcome back. Making sure everything works. Yes, so that's a Knuckle Fest. Oh, I should put the link in the chat so everybody can see the lineup. Okay, the only thing that I'm missing is when is it? October 2nd at 6 p.m. PST.
The 2nd to the 4th, it's all weekend long. It starts Friday night, goes all the way through Sunday. My set's going to be during the Sunday lineup.
All right, thanks,
It's
Alphaster.
a big festival, 20 years running.
Yeah, and I see Infinix Zuma also is a local. Oh, Tanuki Spider Cat.
Tanuki's playing.
Yeah,
area, people from all over the world too, Japan, UK.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the locals, but
Yeah,
he has
of course.
some cool name.
Gotta give shout outs. But it's a good event. It's just really diverse and really pulls from a lot of different scenes.
That's cool. Okay, what do I have next? Oh yes, so Star Crash was this last Thursday, and had a piece on it, and that was really fun. And by popular demand, they are going to do a replay of it on this Sunday at noon. So if you want to watch it, and this is on the webcast of the DNA Launch website, so there's no replay. You have to be there and watch it, and you can watch it later. So take the advantage of the replay, and it's on their website. It's on YouTube, on Twitch. It's run by DNA Launch itself. And people say, "Oh, don't they know YouTube?" Well, I think they were here before YouTube, so that's cool.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, and so on Thursday I've got the whole list of people, so let me give you the first link of the show, so the replay. And and the DNA Launch, if you look on Wikipedia, has got quite an interesting history, and one of the independent venues that promote local artists here in the Bay, so that's really cool. And it's a little bit like also a fundraiser for keeping the DNA Launch open while we are going through the great COVID. What else? Data Cult Audio also, I'll put it here, is featuring every Friday a modular artist for like 1 hour, and also they're doing a giveaway at the moment. So I've given them some of my albums, and they are making a giveaway. I gave you the link to the Instagram post. Follow the rules, and you may win some of their giveaway. Now it's time to talk about the upcoming shows. Well, I'll talk about North Calfest, but local incoming shows. So we've got Bay Improviser, which is on Tuesday, October 13. I've got 2 people that have already signed up, Alex Barnett, and MIDI Script and Manifold Theory are doing a duet. So that's on October 13. You can find the sign-up page, so if you want to join. Moving on, then we've got Resonant Frequencies, which is a RusticNerd Live. Okay, I've got some ambient music. Resonant Frequency is live, is on the Sunday, October 4th at 6 p.m. On this page you will find the sign-up form. It's a live event, so all the artists are going to perform live, and there's visuals, and I see Bill is doing stand-up. So yeah, Bill is part of the crew doing the visuals, and Matt is behind the scene, and you've got Kevin also on the audio, and a few extra people, and I think Need for Storm is doing some of the promo too, so that's cool. And Resonant Frequency is what led us to create Left Coast Light, and here is the invite for Left Coast Light. I put it on the chat, so if you want to join this Discord server with all the local people from the Bay Area and the West Coast and France, Left Coast Light, there is a Discord server, and then you can talk with us. Next, I always talk about Peak. Peak will be on the 21st of October at 7 p.m. I don't know what's the lineup, but that's going to be awesome. That's organized by Richard Guban and Kezol. Let me put the link also. Next, I've got Fez, who's one of the visualists on the Star Crash. He's doing a Sonic Alliance on, what is it? Third Sunday of the month, so it will be on the 18th of October. So here another one. New York Modular Society has got their 1-year anniversary show, which is tonight. It's on Twitch, and it starts at 9 p.m. East Coast, so would be 6 p.m. Local time, Pacific time. And I see there's a cool lineup and a couple of people. So it's a modular synthesizer, so a great show. Schmuster started Earth Modular Society, and I'm giving you the link to the channel, and they do also live shows, etc. So please have a look and subscribe to it. And
really active server. a fun one.
Sorry, Alphaster? Yeah.
It's a really active server right now. There's a lot of people streaming over there. It's pretty cool.
Yes, and I've got a Discord server and everything, so get started here on the YouTube. Okay, and I wanted to finish before we start, so I don't know, I was doing a little bit recap, so I've got, let me put this link also. This is a playlist of all the live from the studio. And so I don't know, I started sometime in mid-2019, but it's only this year that I started to have regular, and then with the great COVID, then I started to have it every week. And my first guest was phuturo in May, and then I started to have it on a regular cadence with Kezol, Hugo Paris. I think Hugo just joined us. Doug Liner is here, Nathan Modi, Malaki is here with us, Amanda Chaudhary, Tanuki Spidercat, Alphaster is here with us, Sarah Belraid. We did an old guest star, I don't know, when was it, like 3 months ago? So that's why we are doing another one. And Point Zero, Distortion Corporation, Pef, Kim Nucci, Cult of One is here, Arbeni, Dirty Bill is here with us, and we've got the old guest star. All right. So time for me to switch windows. Here we go. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. So while I was talking, Bill joined us. Hi, Bill. And Hugo too. Hi, Hugo. And all right, so I'll redo stuff. So yeah, on the screen, so from the top left, I've got Alphaster, Malarkey, Dogliner, Hugo, Bill, or Dirty Bill, and a Cult of One. Thanks everyone for joining.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, I see a few people just join us. Brumata, Joshua, Schmuster is here, ex-friends. I see Forestine. I see a couple. Dylan is here also. If you have got any question for all our guests, please put them on the chat and I will relay to them. So also, I don't know, the theme for today would be a little bit, what inspires you? What are the music and, what gets you to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to create some music and, who are the, artists or style of music that inspire you? And I think for Bill, sometimes it's a visual artist. Who wants to start first? You can raise your hand and I'll see you, or I'll appoint somebody.
I just work on music every night. I don't wake up thinking about it and tend to not think about it all day. But then after I'm done working and done with kid-related things, then it kind of becomes my clear my head creative time for myself and reflecting on the world and everything. There's a long list of ideas I keep in a text file that's synced to my phone, and whenever I see something interesting that gives me an idea, I write down the idea, in part because I almost never have time to act on it right away.
And what type of idea is it? Like music style, or if I put these two modules together, or?
Sometimes it's a combination of modules. Sometimes I'll hear about some gear that interests me, but I don't want to spend the money on it, so I'll go build something similar in Max and start to experiment with it. Sometimes I'll see some visual art that will get me inspired to create a rhythm, for example. So I'll make a sketch of what that was and come back to it. It's all over the place. Sometimes I hear sound design if I'm at a live show and I hear a particular kind of sound that catches my attention. I'll make a note to say, oh, a sound that sort of sounds like this that might have been created this way. And I'll take that idea back and use that as a starting point, almost always changing it dramatically, but it's kind of like a seed of exploration.
Yeah, that's nice. I made a mistake in saying Forestine name. All right, sorry about that. Anybody else? I don't know. Should I move clockwise? Doug?
Well, historically, I talk about big influences, not necessarily the daily stuff.
Oh, can you speak a little bit louder, Doug?
I can. Maybe I can turn something up here. Let me see. All right. So anyway, yeah, one of the big things for me, and this is more of a historical that rock has really informed a whole bunch of my modular approach, having to do with sampling, stuff like that, and creating, you know, sample groups and stuff like that. And so I often find myself these days listening more to really old stuff, not necessarily rock right now, though that was a real beginning for me. But, it's funny that, and I really can't explain why this is, but I've been enjoying it. I've been listening to a lot of big band music lately. And sometimes I find that music that is really, really different from what I do is the most enjoyable stuff for me to listen to.
That's interesting.
And big band music would definitely qualify as being really different than what I do.
Modern classical is my favorite to look to for another genre.
That's cool. Cult of One, I've muted you because there was some background noise, so don't forget to unmute yourself when you want to speak. Maybe we could ask you, Cult of One, what's your inspiration?
It's really hard to kind of explain because, like, I've got a lot of, like, things that I like to do with music, and lately I'm trying to make it as less stressful as possible, so I kind of just, like, wake up and then wait till inspiration finds me. I have a really nice sequencer. Sequencers are kind of what I'm into, so any instrument with a sequencer component to it that can, like, arpeggiate or whatever is, like, what kind of inspires me, so it's easy for me to kind of punch things in. Because the biggest thing for me is if music is too complicated to make, then I don't want to do it, if that makes sense. Like, if I pick up a bass guitar, I can just play it because it's right there, and I've got my fingers, I don't need a pick. It's just right there, right? But like I used to mess around with, like, Ableton, and I used to get really inspired by, like, garage kind of dubsteppy stuff when I used to live overseas, and I realized how complicated that was and how menu divey that was and how expensive that was, and it really, like, pushed me away from music. And when I got into modular, it became really easy just to flip the switch to turn the thing on and punch in a pattern and then start, sequencing that, and then punch in, like, a drum pattern and sequence on top of that, and then I would have music. So now it's like, what it inspires me is similar musicians, like people on, like, the RS Records label, or like God's Kitchen Classics, some of the original stuff that was more techno-y and less trancey. Just like, it's like a machine is making it, but you're making it, so it makes me feel like I can make more of it without running into walls, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes, indeed. Bill?
What was that?
No, I'm asking Dirty Bill.
Oh, did you call me?
Yes.
Well, we touched on it briefly, I think, last week when we chatted. It's diverse influences. But I've probably most recently been taking the engineering approach of, for the modulars, plugging in cables and seeing what that suggests. I actually was working on some sound this morning. I finished fixing some broken modular stuff and was just kind of plugging that in. And now that I think about it a little bit, probably what inspires me is Black Sabbath. I know I said that last week too, but to dive a little deeper, it's the sound of vibrating strings and harmonics. So getting that with oscillators and beating and subtle differences between tones is what works for music. And the same thing with visuals for shapes, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that's for shapes and color. So exploring the relationship sonically or spatially between the contrasting elements. It's more of a technical approach for me. I don't have a music background other than picking up the guitar and kind of.
All right, that's cool. And if you want to bounce back from whoever is talking, please feel free. I think it's your turn, Hugo.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, awesome. Hey, everyone. For me, it's like, I like all the answers and I resonate with all of them. For me, it's like a lot of it is interacting with others, other artists, or people that enjoy music, and just hearing how they either approach their craft or how they resonate with music, and just being reminded of like the experience of experiencing music or performance really triggers me to want to make more. And I just start with like kind of like I use music as a medium, and I'm trying to think about the medium being a tube and what am I putting into that tube. So what am I trying to convey? Is it like an idea? Is it an emotion? Am I trying to evoke, certain feelings? And I feel very fortunate because the way I'm inspired, I get a lot of it through the Wednesday Inspiration for Artists series I have on Instagram, where we exchange a lot about, processes and approaches and, goals and projects we have. And also seeing like, hanging out with friends who make music and seeing how their approach is shifting and how we can like inspire each other. And also seeing like people release stuff. Like I really like Malarkey's new album. Like it's been inspiring to hear it after we talk, and I just find that super inspiring. And then the other thing that inspires me is I do production work for other artists. And so I get to work on music that I haven't created myself, that doesn't come from within, but I get to be very intimate with the craft because I have all the stems, and I talk a lot with the artist about where their intention is and like what they're trying to convey. And so I get to understand and be intimate with some craft that I could have never came up with, and that makes me feel inspired, very inspired.
Yeah, that's nice. And I encourage everybody to go to follow Hugo R.A. Paris on Instagram. I'm confused between the French version and the English version. All right. I say I was going clockwise. I understand that for you have got it in random order, but that's the one I have, and that's the one I'm broadcasting. So next one is Alphaster.
Hey guys. Let's see. Influences for me are all over the place because I've been into music for since I was a little kid. Probably not that uncommon, but I started collecting records when I was 13 or 14 back in the mid 80s. So I've accumulated close to 6,000 records or something like that. So the genres are all over the place. Everything from modern classical to some classical, not too much, but more modern classical type stuff, to jazz and free jazz, to old school hip hop, to 60s garage punk and psychedelic music, and noise and experimental, and all the kind of avant-garde stuff that slipped through the cracks, krautrock and that sort of stuff, and weird electronic records, those old college records with just insane sounds on them that were probably programmed over the course of months, just to create. Stuff like that influences me. I'm influenced by the gear also. That's always something that's just easy to look into and go, what do I want to do? Just look at a module and see what it can do and what it might do with another module that you introduce it to. I tend to not formulate too many ideas at first as far as like what sound I'm going for. It's more of a mood or a vibe or an aesthetic, an oral aesthetic, I guess. Whether it's melodic or just abstract and wild or exploratory, soul music, garage music, all those old music from the 60s and 70s and stuff like that are always kind of close to me. So the production quality of that stuff, like the warmth of those old records, a little bit less on the digital sound, you know what I mean, in general. So I kind of gravitate toward that stuff. I still listen to a lot of that stuff, old punk records and death rock. Early 80s death rock, stuff like that is just wild, and nobody really liked it, so I kind of like that kind of stuff too. Niche scenes like that, I think, are inspiring. Operating in a vacuum, trying not to be influenced by any of it while also being influenced by all of it. Yeah. Movies, books. I'm reading like 5 books right now across the spectrum. I read some Richard Dawkins, God Delusion, and now I'm into the meeting between the Courier and the what was the one, the Spinoza and Leibniz, the meeting of Spinoza and Leibniz, pretty interesting stuff. Unknown Pleasures, Joy Division biography, reading that. It's kind of lighter fare, rock fare. Magazines, like one of my favorite magazines of all time is actually a magazine called Ugly Things out of San Diego. And that's this guy, Mike Stacks, who's like really deep in the 60s garage and psychedelic world. And he's been doing this magazine for like 20 years. It used to come out yearly, and it would take about that long to get through it because he gets really in depth in like the lives and like the members of all these bands that nobody's ever heard of. So I like to kind of pick those up and go through them. Like the current issue is all about Phil May from a band called The Pretty Things that he just passed away about a year ago. And the Pretty Things are very overshadowed by the Beatles and the Stones, the ubiquitousness of the Beatles and the Stones. But there was all these bands that just kind of never really got too much play. Like the Pretty Things were one of them. They were still going strong up until Phil May passed away recently. And I think Mick Taylor, their guitar player, was actually in the Stones in like 1964 before they got big. So, and influenced by stuff like that, sort of like bands that people don't really talk about too much, try to explore stuff on my own.
Indeed. I see Brumata's joined us, and I see Alex Barnett is here, Benjamin Iso, Joshua is also, collaborating is a way also to get yourself challenged and learn some new stuff. Peronosphora had a question, analog versus digital synthesizer preference, which one is your preference when creating music, or it doesn't matter? And Malaki, I muted you because there was the background noise of all the street around you. So don't forget to unmute yourself. So anyone who wants to answer this one, analog versus digital, does it matter for you when you're creating music?
I'll start answering. For me, it's a color palette thing. It's a workflow, of course, but every instrument has a different workflow, so I won't get into this. But color palette wise, it's slightly different, or it can be. And so it would be like asking a painter, are you more into blue shades or red shades? And it's hard to tell. It's just, to me at least, it's hard to tell because it depends on what I'm trying to paint and which mood I'm in and what I'm trying to convey. I think there is a space for both to really shine. And I think that there is beauty in contrast, and that analog and digital can be very complementary. Or do a fully digital album that sounds very digital. Also, there's people that make that stuff that you'd guess is all digital, like Front 242, for example. I thought their stuff was like recorded like on, some recorded digitally. And I think they were recording their stuff on 4-track, which is like, it just blew my mind that they got that sound like this, because it's like, it's not the analog sound, it's like the ultimate thin, glassy, seedy sound, but if you play it loud in a club, it hits really hard. And so, there's people with analog gear that get the digital sound, and there's people that get the analog sound with digital gear. So it's a matter of choices, a matter of taste, and also, for me, it's hard I cannot choose. Like if I had to choose, like I would have a hard time.
Yes. Yeah, it's always between the two. Doug, yes?
Yeah, I think I look at this in two ways. One is kind of practical and one is kind of more universal. In a universal sense, honestly, I don't think it makes any difference what people make music with. And whether or not electricity, rocks and stuff would be cool. And so I don't really see much difference in getting really tiny into whether it's analog or digital, modular or any of this. On the other hand, for me personally, I happen to own analog stuff that's really old, and I'm still using it. And, from a practical point of view, that's what I do. It would be kind of silly to have all of it and try to like really dive over there. At the same time, I do things that are totally digital, although they're not what I take out usually for performance in recent years. But right now I'm working on a project that's in a very early stage, which marries analog and digital. And we'll see what happens with that. That's kind of a fun thing that I'm playing with right now.
Yeah, that's cool. if you want to talk, there's a raise a hand, so like this I know which one to go to. Otherwise, I'll do a random pickup. Yes, cult of one. Oh.
Yeah. So for analog and digital, for me, it's kind of a weird thing because the kind of. So I think I hadn't met you before, Hugo, but like what you were saying, there's these weird things with like digital where you think it's digital, but it's actually analog, and that happens a lot. And so for me, being kind of new to music, I have a whole different kind of route I take. So when I used to live in Japan, the music stores have everything. Like they're not like here in America where like Guitar Center has only what sells sometimes. And I would go and test the instruments, be it analog or digital. And I would try to, I guess the word would be, I would try to brick them at the store. And like, I wanted to see how far it could go and what like errors could be made before the system like froze, or like a lot of times with digital, like I have an OP1, and one thing that happens is sometimes it'll just freeze and it'll stop working. And that's like a game killer. Like, it's like, I can't use this live, that's garbage. But like, I'll always kind of put it on like a ratio of like pros and cons. Like I can push it this far before it breaks down versus this far. And so like I have this, it's a pocket operator by Teenage Engineering, and it seems like such a joke, but this is one of the best instruments I've ever owned because I've never broken it. Like I can't freeze it, dropping it doesn't make it stop. If the batteries are put in correctly, I can sequence for hours on this before the batteries die. It doesn't break. I can't break it. But like, I'll be playing with my OP1 through my Dual FX and my Dual FX is analog on my Erica synths, and the OP1 will freeze sometimes. And you're like, oh, well now that stops, so I'll have to like cut it and move it. But like on my Erica synths, for example, as well, I have a mix of analog and digital modules, but the sequencer has a computer chip in it because it's not all analog, and the sequencer will freeze sometimes on me. So for me, it's more about like, how far can this item go before it breaks, and how far can an analog thing go before like the heat induction puts it out of tune. So like I have, I recently bought the TD3 clone, and it's analog, and I noticed that if you go for too long on it, it falls out of tune really quickly, and then it's like you're now trying to retune it as you're playing it. So there's like pros and cons for me, and I'm always wondering like how long I have on one item before I make a mistake that then ruins the entire set. I don't know if anybody else thinks like that. That's kind of how I go.
Yeah, I definitely have spent many decades planning my musical performances around drifting oscillators and stuff like that. And it's funny though, because I remember a performance I did a few years ago where the power went out in the section of San Francisco that I was performing in.
Power is a problem.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really funny that the only thing left on was a laptop that I was using to feed some source material. So at that moment, you know, I'm a 99.9% analog person. At that moment, the only thing I had going for me was a laptop. So you just never know.
You don't. It's like before I got into modular, I was getting into a lot of the Teenage Engineering stuff because I was noticing that the at least for menu diving and stuff like that, I made less mistakes. And so there's another whole caveat to that, right? Where it's like, also, how many menus do I need to dive through a thing, analog or digital, before I make a mistake and mess the entire thing up, right? So that's like another thing. Like, does the digital thing freeze if I press too many buttons at the same time, or does the other thing happen? And with a lot of the Teenage Engineering stuff, besides the OPZ, that's a I don't even want to get into that. That's totally different stuff. But like, if I have this with my OP1, and then like I have the PO400, which is an analog modular rack, like they all take batteries. So there's like all these like pros to having them, right? But then like again, I said the OP1 freezes, so it's.
Yeah, it happens. I think also somebody is saying, I think Brumata says they love the P020 arcade, and Alex Barnett said, Cult often reminded him to press the save button on the sequencer. And somebody is asking, what's the most embarrassing thing that happened when you were performing live? And I think Alphaster, you wanted to bounce back.
I can't think of anything embarrassing that ever happened when I was playing live. Just thinking of that. But I was going to say something about, it's kind of not so embarrassing, but having been in bands or whatever, playing on stage and stuff, there is a time sometimes when you got to tune on the fly, when your guitar slips out of tune or bass slips out of tune. So it's a good skill to develop the ear in that regard. But otherwise, I was going to chime in a little bit on the analog versus digital thing. I really don't have I'm not a purist in either way. I kind of prefer analog tones because I grew up with that, just, growing up with records and that sort of thing. But, as a tool, I don't mind digital. And I do use iPad apps and stuff from time to time. So those are kind of fun to incorporate into the workflow because you can do a lot of stuff with samples, and which is cool because you can take pure analog samples and stuff like that and dump them into some programs that are, kind of granular and have interesting interfaces, so I like messing around with that kind of stuff when it comes to digital technology. I don't have much in the way of modular and digital. I think most of my stuff is mostly analog, but I've got a couple things I'm sure in there.
Yeah, and sometimes, and sometimes some modules are digital behind the scene, but get into an analog flow.
Yeah. So I guess it can be embarrassing if you're trying to tune a guitar live on stage and it's not going very well. To kind of tie that into.
Yeah, some skills to develop for live performance. Malarkey or Dirty Bill? I don't know, which one of you?
I can answer both. I'm going to second Hugo's idea that analog versus digital are different parts of a sound palette. And I like to play them off of each other and sometimes build a sound using both, often using a digital FM sound that's processed downstream by something analog. I tend to veer towards using analog sounds in the low end, so bass tones and lower midtones, and more DSP related sounds at the high end. And it's just I find it easier to control things for myself that way. In terms of embarrassing things, I think there was one time I was performing where I had one piece of gear in what I thought was a stable place on top of another piece of gear. It turned out not to be so stable, so it slid down and started playing notes on a keyboard inadvertently. And I don't think anyone noticed, so a lot of times in live performance, these things that we notice ourselves stand out and bother us a lot, but no one called it out, and I got good feedback on it otherwise. So I've learned not to beat myself up over it and to just roll past these things and keep going.
It's important not to telegraph mistakes.
The intended improvisation, yeah.
I think who's DB? I'm missing. Oh, Dirty Bill, sorry. What's wrong with me? Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
Oh yeah, it's digital versus analog, slightly different in the visual realm, but it is the same in the way that, in the sense that it all depends on what you're going for, right? I like the uncertainties of the analog world, especially in video. I don't think video is ever meant to be synthesized, so the equipment is quirky in its own way, whereas the digital visual stuff is more precise, and technically it's more of it's all hardware, it all runs on hardware. So it's more of a software versus hardware kind of thing. But as far as that goes, either or, whatever is called for. for what your vision is. To realize that, I think, is best. Embarrassing moments. I think everybody touched on this. Something is always going to happen in performance. And I think it's impossible to be unflappable, but realizing that the impact, as Marky said, on the audience is probably much less than you think it is helpful, because it'll guard you and make you better prepared, I think, for any event that comes up. But mostly just keep on moving, because soon it will be past you and someone else will have screwed up in a bigger way and you'll be forgotten about.
Yes, and you know the mistake you're making during the live show or the live event, but not the crowd is unnecessary, so you don't need to specify them. Hey, I made a mistake here.
Yes.
Just let it flow. If somebody noticed, then you can talk about it, but if nobody noticed, then it's fine. I think Cult of Fun wanted to intervene.
Yeah, the on embarrassing things, I think the most embarrassing thing actually just happened to me 2 days ago, and I'm still recovering from it. So I have a public radio station. It's a Free Harbor radio show, so it happens really late at night and goes into the early hours of the morning. It's a 3-hour radio show, and I've never done a 3-hour DJ set before, so that was like my first time doing it. And we basically planned for all contingencies to happen, and the one thing we couldn't plan for actually happened. So Murphy's Law literally hit us with like a bag of bricks. So I streamed to a server, which then streams to like another server on a low broadband radio station, and the server stopped pushing the stream to the radio halfway through the set. So I was performing, talking, doing my whole thing, and then 1.5 hours in, the audio cut, but my computer said I was still broadcasting. So I had to like freak out on the fly, and there's like a 20-second delay. So I had 20 seconds to shut down my computer program and reboot it and try to save it, right? And it would just create like a little audible pop, like you wouldn't be able to hear it. And I did that, got it all back up, and the station was still down, so we figured it was a server issue, but it was still being recorded and still being streamed to another thing, which was an international radio station. And they could hear it there. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. What I didn't realize was when I rebooted my computer, it cut my mic. So the other 1.5 hours of my DJ set, where I'm like talking, explaining like The Cure and explaining Joy Division and stuff like that, there's like these long pauses between songs, are all dead air. Because the music was still streaming, and I'm just like talking to no one.
Yeah,
so,
I had some of this problem also on the live from the show, and luckily the people on the chat is telling me, we can't hear you. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't put back my mic on.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I'm gonna go to Hugo, but I'm just checking a little bit the chat with DB Poland, and I think there's some people that are doing some unplugging rack or unpatching a rack video, which are interesting. So yes, Hugo.
I like everyone's answer. I'm sorry this happened to you guys. It's some stuff. I think we all have those like horror stories, but also like it's kind of like refreshing also. I mean, it hurts when it happens, and it hurts for like a couple days afterwards because you beat yourself up. But then it's like, actually, I'm okay. I'm still making music. People still enjoy my music. It's fine. And also, like, I wanted to make the parallel with like 2 other, mediums, I guess, or avenues, like stand-up comedians. When you go see them live, what's special from like watching DVD is like they're gonna pick a cue from the crowd, or they're gonna be thrown off, and seeing how the artist responds to an unexpected situation makes the live so much more interesting for the audience. And that's also like we were talking about your analog gear drifting, or like with temperature, seeing how people respond to that is super interesting too. And the other part I wanted to suggest is like jazz musicians, like when they play live together, they'll improvise. And there's like videos of jazz musicians, really seasoned ones, that improvise together. And then you feel like the whole thing is kind of like falling apart. And all of a sudden, boom, it gels back in, and it feels so good. It feels like they pushed it to the edge. They pushed the audience, like you feel like you're on a cliff, and then they bring it back. And just like that response to a challenging situation in context, like live, is what I think people can connect a lot with when they watch a performance. I connect with it personally.
Yeah, it's a little bit the same for me. Dylan is mentioning also, that when there's something happening in a weird way, the audience will root for you when there's a technical problem, and you'll kind of wake up all the other people and then, relaunch the show sometimes, which is interesting. But yes, it's how do you handle the unexpected, and that's what people are coming to see a live show. Yes.
If I can interject, that it's really true that what happens unexpectedly in a performance is really important. And I think that actually it's something that, as electronic music is developed as a performance concept, that has had an interesting effect, because when you go and you see a cellist play, for instance, and they make a mistake, you can kind of tell there's a repertoire of understanding between the audience and the performer. But when electronic music came along, it used to be so funny because nobody had any way to appreciate the risk, even though there was far greater risk for the performer. They had no way to get it, because it was like, oh, that was a mistake? Oh, okay. So I think the risk ratio has been a humorous development throughout the history of it all. I think now audiences are a little bit more aware, but it was funny at first.
Yeah, I guess when you go to see a classical piece, everybody knows the score, and then people know when a note has been missed. But when you go to see an electronic part, was it part of the show or not? I haven't heard it before, so I don't know. Alphaster, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think Suzanne Ciani talks about that too, being like on stage back in the day in the 70s with her buchla, and like nobody knowing what the hell it was, so it didn't really matter what she was doing up there. What was I going to say? Yeah, I noticed in the electronic scene, especially recently with the modular synth scene, all the streams and stuff are like almost every time like some stuff goes wrong with those, like the streams drop and breaking up, or it's like super, buffering and just like stuttery and this and that. But like everyone's super tolerant and supportive, and like that could be embarrassing scenarios for people who are trying to get their stuff out there. But I've noticed that like the support in the chats and stuff is always like super positive, and people will sit around and wait until like the Modular World stream, I think, went down completely a couple months ago, and they had to like set up a whole new one, and like everyone just jumped over to the new link, and wasn't that big of an issue. So it's kind of good to see that sort of thing, that encouragement, and and music in general, because again, growing up in bands, it's always like it's a different world out there, and it's like real cutthroat, and people are like all about like scrutinizing, and being in bands in LA too for years too, where everyone just kind of looks at you. There's no like reaction whatsoever half the time. They're just kind of waiting for you to like hit a bum note, so they can like whatever about it. So like growing up with that whole world is like it's interesting, and it's easy to be discouraged to do it. I think I was just hearing somebody talk about being in punk bands back, and I was in the EMS server chatting with somebody, a girl who was like, I was 18 and I joined some punk bands, and like they just got like so turned off by it because the guys that were in it were just so like all about not about the music. It's all about just discouraging people. So it's cool to see this whole new world where like online everyone's just super encouraging and supportive.
It's funny you say that, because in the 70s and 80s especially, I was I had bands in LA and was performing around there and putting out records and doing new wave and synth pop stuff. And I remember comparing it to someone about a few years ago, comparing that scene to the electronic music and experimental music scene here in the Bay Area, and they were kind of saying that, wow, it's a little bit competitive here and stuff. And I said, wow, geez, this seems like a real, just community to me, because in LA it was so cutthroat.
Yeah.
That was just the norm. Nobody thought, oh yeah, we're just going to go hang around with the other bands and stuff. It's like, well, No, not really. Not that much.
But I will say one thing in positive about the LA scene is that their punk scene from like the late '70s. Those are the people I was hanging out with when I got there. Like those guys are all super inclusive and super open-minded, and they're all into like all sorts of different kinds of music. You know, you wouldn't even think it, you know, just by knowing of those bands. But all those bands that came out in the late '70s, like Brendan Mullins' Club, The Mask, and all that, were like the most diverse scene. None of those bands were at all alike. You know, they're all so different from each other, and they just like did their own thing. And it was like a really interesting sort of just really short period of time where that was going on. But one positive aspect of the LA scene would be that, I think. Otherwise, but once you get commercial, of course, it gets stupid, you know, in the club scenes and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that once you start moving up, you move into the clubs, and that's the first stupid thing that happens.
Yeah.
And then the record people are there, and I don't know about anymore, but back then it was like that. The labels were real important.
Yeah, and in the '90s there was the pay-to-play thing was huge too. So you know, I worked at a record store up on the Strip for a minute, right across from the Roxy. I was telling Frank about this earlier actually. And every weekend there'd be a group of kids come in with their parents. You know, this was like maybe '97, '98, somewhere around there. You know, and they'd have like a stack of tickets, and they're like trying to sell, like me, trying to get me to go to their show or whatever. And it's like some System of a Down wannabe band or something, you know, just trying to do whatever was hip at the time. And like, I just felt so bad for these kids because like every weekend they'd come in, there'd be a different group of kids, and they're just like, yeah, they had to sell like a couple hundred tickets or something to even get to break even on the gig because they basically were renting out, you know, the club, whether it was the Roxy or the Whiskey or whatever. I think it was usually the Whiskey actually that was doing it. You know, they'd have Monday nights, 10 bands.
And everyone did it, yeah. I missed out on it because I had records out and I was on the radio. But yeah, tons of people were paying all the time at all the clubs.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was just like a sad sort of period. I think it's still probably going on a little bit. But...
Yeah, I think there's still, stuff. I don't know, some part of the music industry which are trying to, the will of artists to become visible by saying, well, if you pay me, I'm going to promote you and your music. But
Battle of the Bands are like the most insidious thing. Those are like the worst.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't see the return. You say, okay, well, yeah, I'm happy to put some money, but I need to see how much money I'm getting from that. And sometimes you're too hopeful.
Yeah.
Changing a little bit the discussion, I had a question from peronosphora. So when you are performing and you want some visuals, what do you do? Do you have a Dirty Bill on speed dial?
That's it. Have Dirty Bill on speed dial.
There's a lot of people doing visuals, so...
Yes, I have you, and I think peronosphora was asking also about Fez. I think, Fez does visual often. I think you also, the TB, you do some, and then we've got Jason Warden also that was doing it, and
I work with Tim Thompson.
Yeah, Tim Thompson.
Yeah, Tim, Kit Young. There's a lot of people in different spaces. Some of them are mostly like live visualists and sound artists as well. Some people come from the media art, fine art space, like Kit. There's like that whole Lumia crew, Dennis and those guys who've been to Resonant Frequencies, who've been doing it for decades, starting with the happening light shows of the 60s. And there's just a ton of people doing it for DJs in software as well. So
does it work for all of you when you're doing performance and you want to add some visual? The space has got the visuals, or you've got people, hey, I've got a gig, can you come and do the visual? Or does it work for you? Oh, I'm asking everybody. I think Hugo wants to start.
Yeah, I have a late friend who was making video synthesis in the Bay Area. And he was using like gear he got on like just random stuff he got at the Salvation Army, doing video feedback with a VHS and stuff like that. And he started posting it, on Facebook back then, like in 2014. As I was prepping for my first solo gig. I was in a band too, but I was prepping for my first solo gig when my first solo album came out. And I reached out, and within 48 hours, he whipped up a really cool visual thing that he gave me. I remember like meeting him at the Blue Bottle in Oakland, and he had like because that's where he worked, and he had put the DVD in like the big Lebowski case, and I took it home and played it, and it was like this super cool, like very vivid color analog video. I don't know much about video really, but it just looked like lots of feedback, lots of like saturated tones. It was super cool. It worked very well with my aesthetics, and I've been using it since. And it just like, I have a different version of it that I slowed down for when I play an ambient set, because it's also flickery. Like it's really good for like beats, but it's been with me for like years, and he has passed since, and I feel like it's a way to like carry on his work and keep presenting it and keep taking it with me. And it's just like, it's been with me since I play solo, so it's like, it's super special. I think someday I'd like to find the right person and right time to just like take this as material and expand it and try to like, you know, honor his legacy. But that's what I have been doing. I haven't worked with a live visualist yet.
Yeah. Alphaster?
Yeah, I think visuals are super important in live performance, and I've always tried to incorporate that, going back to some experimental stuff I did in the 90s as well, which was super primitive, just, you know, stuff with televisions, I guess. I'm not sure how they were doing it, but and then in the last couple of years, I've been doing some shows with a friend of mine, Rose, who does I think they're a duo called True Indigo, and they're based out of SF. They've been doing stuff out of the Honey Hive for a few years, and Honey Hive is over in the Sunset. It's kind of a small place. I was having shows, and a lot of experimental shows. So I did some stuff with that person. And then the first time I actually did anything with live with a modular synthesis was at the Visions of a New World show that I did just before lockdown. I can't remember that guy's name, but he was really cool, and he had like a big, I think it was 12U setup of LZX stuff, and that was like the first time I got to really check out some modular synthesis, so I thought that was really interesting. And riffing on that a little bit about like what Hugo was saying was working with someone is like kind of how like Pink Floyd did that, you know, back in the day where they had like, that was like one of the band members essentially was the visual guy, you know, so it's kind of cool to have like that sort of like goal in mind. It'd be cool to hook up with somebody who just like that in tune with your music, you know, and can like riff off of it and work with it in a collaborative perspective.
Yeah. I see DB Poland was at Wabi Sabi say he just ordered SWN, so and
I kind of thought to get one of those, but I caught Hugo late.
and,
real quick too, what's your are you wearing my shirt there, Bill? We didn't talk online, did we?
Oh yes, matching shirt.
You know I printed that, right?
Like, that's what I got. I actually did a wardrobe change because I was like, oh, look, I got that shirt.
Cool. Awesome.
I love them. Just a quick off topic, any clothes that I really love, I buy multiples of it so I can have them for decades because I wear the hell out of them.
So you bought more than one? Awesome.
I did. I bought two.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Cause too, so.
Yes. And I think, I don't know, we haven't heard from Malaki in a little while. Do you want to bounce back on the visuals? Or any other topic?
Yeah, on the visual side, I actually have done my own visuals live before. There's such a great scene of visualists in the Bay Area that many people haven't seen them because it's usually if I'm playing at a private event or something like that where I'm just doing it on the fly and I have a lot of stuff prepped, but it's more fun to focus on one thing or the other, so I tend not to do that unless the situation calls for it. It's a lot of fun because I can then grab raw MIDI data and use that. So I can couple the systems together more tightly than you can if you're separate performers. But it also is more mentally tiring to be doing both together.
Yeah.
It's fun to let someone else respond to it instead.
Yeah, more up to handle. The T-Bill?
Oh, yeah, we'll be expecting you to do an AV set next time you play Res Freak.
All right.
I'm up for it.
Yes, Hugo?
I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to hearing what you'll do with the Swan, to whoever. I didn't hear the name. I don't have the stream this chat next to me right now. I can see it.
Yeah, that's a Wabi-Sabi DB Poland is so next week I've got Xmod, and the week after I will have a Wabi-Sabi on the show. So,
nice.
so I guess the SWN module may be involved in the.
I look forward to hearing it. Let's hear it.
If it, I think he ordered it, so we'll have to wait for. I don't know if
we talked about inspiration earlier, and like that too is a huge source of inspiration because I spent 3 years on that module, and seeing like what people do with it as an instrument and where they take it, and like the stuff that I didn't even think of when I made it like at all, and it's like it's so inspiring to see like how creative brains just react to things differently and take things in different places. It's really unique. So I'm excited.
All right, cool. I see we are reaching a little bit the top of the hours. I'll remind everybody, to subscribe, like, follow everything, follow the artists, also look for them on Bandcamp, etc. I think there was a couple of other questions, like what platform do you primarily use to promote your music, and why did you choose that one? But maybe I'm not going too much into the business of music. I think, I would like to do annual little round, everybody, for the, I don't know, whatever you want to talk about or whatever your topic. And then I'll go to the news and then we'll close the show. So just want to round. So who wants to start based on everything that we talk, or any other topic wants to start and as a closing time for the show? No? Anybody? Nobody raise their hand?
I'll talk for a second.
It's
good to see everybody out and communicating, and sort of the same like the last time. I just really am enjoying seeing the community aspect in the modular synth world and the electronic world. I think it's going to be a good thing once this lockdown thing ends. Because all these really cool connections have been made, and I think we can build something off of that out in the actual world, IRL and all that. So that's cool. Carry on.
All right. I guess I'm going clockwise again, but you don't know which clockwise it is. So, Malarkey?
No big closing thoughts, but I've noticed a general divergence of people who are either going heads down being creative or not, or asking for how to be creative instead, and encourage everyone in the latter category to just do something every day and you'll find a path.
Yeah, that's awesome. Doug?
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with that. Working every day is a key to it all. Even if it's just listening to what you did the day before, you got to keep the pump dry, and always be creative and be thinking creatively. And of course, that's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. And, I'm interested, people mention the COVID situation and post-COVID and all of that, and it's going to be interesting to see. I graduated from Cal Arts and studied with Morton Subotnick and Hal Budd and Jim Tenney and some people down there. It was all really important to me. And the other day I got a thing in the email which said, essentially, we are on the brink of ceasing to exist. And this is a really important place that played a big part in the history of what we all do, And so it's interesting to see, and it will be interesting to see how deep, the wounds from the COVID circumstances are in the art world as venues and institutions and things suffer, perhaps irreparably so. So interesting times. None of us need an institution to make music, though, and that's really, I think, the strength of it all these days, is that we can continue on. But it's nice to have a bigger world around us, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. And it was interesting, like for Star Crash, DNA Launch said that was the first production that they did for Star Crash. So it's a great highway came to the venue and then recorded their live set at the DNA Launch with no public and everything. So at least that's something you can do. You can go in the venue and then record it so that you can stream it later. That helps to participate. I'm still carry on. I'll get to you, the T-Bill. Cult of One.
I mean, I guess like with everything going on and stuff like that, it's hard to really kind of promote things because I know a lot of people are kind of struggling with money and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to find a balance in producing things. Like I'm producing an album right now, which is obviously like, you know, up for pre-order, but then I'm also trying to produce like little like techno sets that people can just access, that they don't have to pay for or anything like that. And I'm trying to make that balance. And I think that's an important kind of distinction to make now, because one thing I've noticed, at least in the pop music world, is that it's very obvious that pop musicians don't really care about the pandemic because, you know, they're still selling tickets for events that are postponed for $250, expecting people to pay these things and asking for people to pay for things on, you know, social media and stuff like that. So I think for at least artists that pay attention to ethics and morals, right? Like we have to find a way to be able to bring people, like you said, like the art world is kind of like crumbling right now. We have to find a way to like make sure people have access to art without like gatekeeping it, especially when like at this point, like most people around the world are disenfranchised at this moment right now, either because they can't go to work or their job dissolved because of the pandemic and stuff like that. So me personally, like I have a YouTube, I stream sets to that every night pretty much. I stream sets to my Instagram and my Twitch and my Facebook. And then I'll, every other day or something like that, I'll put a techno set up on my Bandcamp. So go check that out.
All right, that's cool. The T-Bill?
Just a note on the, you know, creative processing, creativity, which is, I certainly agree with being involved in your art every day, or as regularly as you can be. Look to unexpected places for inspiration, things you would not normally be interested in, and go easy on your self-expectation. So that's kind of it.
Thank you. And I think we are finishing with Hugo.
Yeah, it was really cool to hang out with you all. Like, I feel really good about this. Like, I think I'm probably going to be making music after that. But I really like what Malarkey said. You know, if you want to do something, it's good to think about it and to try to conceptualize it. But really, you don't know until you do it. And I had a Wednesday Passion for Artists on this. Or actually, I don't know if I posted it yet, but it's the metaphor of a sailor. Like the sailor that's taking his ship across the ocean, they have a destination somewhere they want to go, but they don't know how the weather is going to evolve throughout. They don't know how the crew on board is going to feel, if they're going to be sick, if the winds are going to shift, there's going to be a tempest or anything. So they have to go with a destination in mind, but be open to shifting. And I think that not fully knowing the details of the journey shouldn't prevent someone to go on that journey, because it's only when you're on the journey that you figure out the details. And I think that the process of sharing is a good opportunity to encourage others to do the same, to show your work, your process, and to tell others like it's a process. Like, I feel I'm not a huge fan of what social media can do, but I also like the fact that now, you know, it's not like this black box where like all of a sudden you have this massive album that comes out, but it's like you see the artist in the process. It's not this, you know, magical god that created something incredible. And then the last thing regarding COVID, I'm really sad to hear that about Cal Arts. I didn't know. And it's sad to hear institutions hurting like this and the platforms that grew artists and community hurt. I also see that there are changes and new opportunities. There's opportunities we're talking about disenfranchised people towards art. There's opportunities for people to access performances that would have been too expensive otherwise, but now they can sit for free streaming. or that would have been disenfranchised because of their location. Maybe they don't live in Los Angeles and they cannot see that band when they're on tour because they don't stop in their small town in the south of France. Random example. But that idea that now, because things are shifted remotely, everybody that has a remote access can do it, and it's still there's still a lot of work to do because there's lots of people that don't have proper internet connection or technology to access it, but it gives maybe more access and maybe less expensive, so even more in this way. At least I'm hoping that things like what you're doing, Franck, today is giving something to people for free, and just being there and all together and offering something is going to grow and become even more prevalent, even post-COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Hugo. I think Alphaster wanted to bounce back quickly.
Yeah, just a quick riff on the sailing metaphor. I think in the creative process, it is important to just embrace being uncomfortable and like out of your element, and just expect to get lost and just be happy that you can, learn something from that. So I think that's something to kind of take from that.
That's a great metaphor, and hope CalArts figure it out a way forward. Or sometimes you close and then you reopen a little bit later. Sometimes you just need to weather the storm. All right, so I'm gonna go back on the news. Stay online. What also I wanted to say is for the people that are watching this show or watching the replay of the show, I'm very interested by your comment of inspiration and I don't know, your mistake or whatever. So please post it in the comment on the YouTube channel when you're rewatching the show. I'll be interested also by your take from what everyone here has been talking about. So let me do a kind of a quick recap on the news. I need to change my screen. Here we go. A recap on the news. So my site, pitchymango.org. I want to thank my Bandcamp supporters for helping me to do this show and making some music. So it's all on Bandcamp, frankmartin.bandcamp.com. We've got Friday, 2nd of October, we've got Bandcamp Friday. So Bandcamp waives their fees and pass the money to the artist. So get people on your get music on your wish list and buy it next Friday. What did I see that is new? You've got Stolen Car from Carlstone, which is a local who does some interesting electronic music. I don't know, maybe it's granular in a kind of way that's interesting the way it does. Hugo has got a Threaded Habitat remix. Sorry, I need to put this link on the chat. There we go. So that's one you can put also on your wish list and buy it on Friday. That's interesting. And I saw that there was a remix by Nathan Modi, so that's gonna be cool. You've got the NorCal Fest 2020, which is starting on the October 2nd. 6 p.m. and it goes over a couple of days, and there's Alphaster and some very awesome bands on it, so please check it. If you miss my performance at the DNA Lounge and so many other people performance, there is a replay on the Sunday at noon. This is a link to the replay, and you can see on this poster all the awesome local artists. And as I was saying earlier, Great Highway did a recording of their performance at the DNA Lounge a couple of days ago, so that's gonna be this Sunday at noon. This is the original event, who was last Thursday, and this is a webcast. If you miss it, you won't be able to see it again. Data Cult Audio does a giveaway promo. So if you want to win some CD and DVDs, check it. And also, it's a nice place. There's a new artist every week to listen to for about an hour with no talking. Very nice place to discover a ton of modular synth artists from all over the world. Resident Electronic Music is on October 13, and the sign-up form is open. And I've got already Alex Barnett and MIDI Script plus Manifold Theory. So please... if you want to perform, and as we say, you see that we are all making mistakes during our performance. So if you are a new artist or starting or beginning, don't worry about making mistakes. We all do them, and it goes fine. Resonant frequency. I think I moved to a quarterly event instead of a monthly event because COVID, and it's a real live streaming with all the artists, and handling all the technology is sometimes a little bit scary. So it's on Sunday, October 4th at 6 p.m. And if you go on the page also, you've got the sign-up form. So that's gonna be cool also. Peak will be on the Wednesday, 21st October at 7 p.m. That's a way to keep to know what's happening with Peak. They run from Meetup, so please have a look and subscribe or join the group. So if you want to follow it, I've got the Sonic Alliance also, which is run by Fez, which is on the third Sunday of the month, so on the 18th of October. That's quite nice, another show. You've got New York Modular Synth Society. Oh wait, need to come back because I didn't put the Twitch link. Here we go, I'm back. New York Modular Synth Society, which is having a show tonight at 9 p.m. New York time. 9 p.m. Yes, 9 p.m. New York time, so 6 p.m. Pacific time. Please have a look, and it's the 1 year anniversary. It's one of this modular society. You've got here locally, you've got Left Coast Light, and I'm pasting the invite for Left Coast Light if you want to join our Discord server. Here for Left Coast Light, and so you've got New York Modular, you've got Colorado Modular Synth Society, I've heard of Houston, and if you know more modular societies, I think there is also Colin Benders. If you know more modular synth society, please let me know. I'm happy to talk about them.
Synth Booth coming up too.
Which one?
Synth Booth is coming up too. That's an online event that's going to be in October.
Oh yes, Synth Booth. Okay.
All breakout rooms, I think, and different talks and makers, performances, and keynotes. I think Suzanne Chiani is doing a keynote. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this one totally escaped me, so I'll put a note for next week to remember about it. But yes, check the Synth Booth. Is it organized by the Seattle Modular Society? I'm not sure.
It's a gal doing it. I can't remember her name, but I think she's independent from that group. But they're all helping out, I'm sure.
Okay, so that's cool. So Synth Booth.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
There's a good interview with the girl on the Modular podcast that Tim Held does out of Seattle. I think it's like 3 episodes ago or something. Her name, I think, is Anna something or other. But there's like an hour-long conversation with her about the whole event and how it came to be and what it's going to be about. So.
All right. Yeah, thank you for pointing the other events. Sometimes I don't see them all or I forget. But yes. Synth Booth. Did I put... So Us Modular Society also has got a channel and a Discord server, but you can start by YouTube, and they do a lot of live streaming, non-formal live streaming, which is quite cool. And this is a list of all the all the live from the studio. So if you want to watch it again and everything, and please put some comments. Don't forget to subscribe to it and follow, like. That would be awesome. So who had that today? I see I've got a Schmuster, I've got Alphaster was here, Alex Barnett, Forestine, Joshua S, Peronosphora, Dylan Sang, Benjamin Iso, X-Friends, DB Poland, Wabi Sabi will be soon on the show, Brumata, who am I? That's about it, I think. Trying to go a little bit back. Yeah, that was very nice for you to come here. Thank you, everyone. I don't know, 1 or 2 words to finish?
Get lost.
Sorry?
Get lost.
All right.
Get lost.
Like Chet Baker.
All right. Yes, thank you very much. So I'll do it by, so on the top left, starting Alphaster, then Malarkey, Dogliner, Hugo, R.A. Paris, Dirty Bill, and Cult of One. That was really awesome for you to join me today for this chat, and the conversation was really interesting. Thank you very much, everybody. See you later, and there will be another one, All-Star, in a couple of weeks. All right. As I say, the next show is X-Mode, is the flyers. I'm going to put it up on YouTube in a couple of minutes when I close this one. So you can come, click the reminders, and be ready for the next one. All right. Back to the visuals. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice weekend. Thanks all for joining the show.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.